Aging is really matters by the a way we can measure our biological aging process, which is different. So biological aging, therefore, is how our body is aging as opposed to chronological aging, which is how the calendar tells us we're old.
Now,
Yeah.
intolerance, of course, is going to be different than an allergy, a frank allergy, where you get the hives and the rashing and the throat closing. And then an allergy then is going to be different than a sensitivity. So people can have a wide range of reactions to this protein called gluten.
That jurisdiction of the sheriff is really the most powerful guard and protector of the rights of the people than any other institution our founders created here.
We're so excited to talk to you this time about biohacking, bioharmonizing, bioenergizing, and people need to know the difference between true chronological aging and hacking this thing called biological age. What's the difference?
I like how you put that. So a good way to understand this is simply this. We tell our chronological age with our birthday, which is driven by a calendar and the time, the watch, but that is not true aging. This might blow people's minds, but it's different. Aging is really matters by the a way we can measure our biological aging process, which is different. So biological aging, therefore, is how our body is aging as opposed to chronological aging, which is how the calendar tells us we're old.
Well, and we know that there are at least 4 things that we have complete control over. That's nutrition. What's at the end of your fork? That's the biggest, most highly contributing factor to your long-term health. It's 85% of long-term outcome. Then there's that thing called sleep. We've got to get enough sleep so that our system is not overly exhausted and burning the candle at both ends. We've got to exercise. We know that sitting is the new smoking, and if we don't exercise and don't move, boy, that sets the system up for this thing called toxicity or toxic milieu, if you want. And then last but not least is stress management. If we live a life stressed out, that's a good way to decrease that biological age.
Well, it is. And a lot of people we don't think about.
Actually, it's going to increase biological age.
It's going to increase biological age. There's a lot of people. I use the 20-year high school reunion story. And for those of you who are like, hey, wait a minute, I remember going to that. Okay, you had this thing happen. You had this idea, this epiphany moment. You looked at your partner, your wife or husband and said, my gosh, they look old.
What happened?
What happened to them? And you probably made the comment, they must have had a hard life. But then you looked at the same group of people and you saw a few that said, that you observed, you said, hey, they look really good. They haven't changed a bit. They look the same age mostly as they did back when they were a senior in high school. That's the biological aging process, and it's different. And yeah, some people have had some circumstances that make life harder. But the bottom line is we should begin to take charge of and make better decisions towards the 4 areas you talked about, sleep, stress management, movement, and exercise. That helps us a lot. And a lot of people are out there right now using various supplements and various little hacks, if you will, to sort of speed up or maybe prevent the aging process or perhaps slow it down.
Well, we have a few biohacks that we just really love. One of them is this thing called molecular hydrogen water. How does that work?
Okay, so everybody out there has heard the term free radicals. So free radicals could be looked at maybe like aging products, like you got the body ages, it's like going through life, moving around, breathing, sleeping, talking, exercising. In the process of creating energy to make all that happen, there is waste products. Think about a refinery that's going to have waste products. So free radicals then are built up waste products. And the body has the ability to sort of handle them, clean them up, if you will. But sometimes our body loses the ability and the free radicals can build up faster. And therefore, they become cellular damaging molecules. Okay, so hydrogen being the smallest element on the periodic table. Number one, it's the smallest thing. it can be consumed by water. So we've got these little machines that we put hydrogen in water, and we drink the water, which carries the hydrogen. The hydrogen comes in and chops those free radicals in half that are excessive, turns them back into water, thereby minimizing the buildup and perhaps slowing down the biological aging process.
So that's cool. With hydrogen water specifically, molecular hydrogen, we can turn this free hydroxyl radical, which does absolutely no good for the system except cause oxidative stress or rusting.
Yep.
We can turn it into water, and the body is 65% water anyway. So that's a win. Where do people find this hydrogen machine?
Look, they can reach out to us, and obviously we have little portable machines. We have access
I
to
love that.
big
It goes with
machines.
us. We travel with it.
We do. And, that's just one thing we do to biohack the system. And, there's many other things we do. A lot of times people want to be able to inject things. We inject things like NAD, nicotinamide, adenine dinucleotide. That's a cool term, right? Can't memorize
Which
that.
is in the electron transport change of the
Yeah.
mitochondria,
That's right.
which make energy for you.
So we're trying to figure out different ways to do that. And there are tests that people can do as well in our clinic
Ding,
that
ding,
sort
ding,
of
ding, ding.
measure this process. They're known as true age, except it doesn't have the E, TRUAGE. And then we've got glycan age, GLYCAN age. Both of those are kind of different metrics of age clocks that we can do. And they're pretty accurate. It shows kind of how your system is aging, the pace, the actuality. It gives you a chronological, age, and then it sort of gives you a biological age estimate as well. How well your system's aging, and perhaps, how well your immune system's performing. So your immune age, for example, is in the 20s. Go figure.
It is in the 20s. And people can also run their genetics. I find that one of the coolest tests that we have, because you see what those oxidative stress pathways actually, what we're born with. So somebody who's got oxidative stress stacked against them, that biohack hydrogen water is a good way to go. Plus then following it with the test. So the genes are the loaded gun, the environment pulls the trigger, and we can see how we're doing by testing.
Well, there's no question. And we just kind of take some action on that. I mean, the bottom line is we're not stuck in the idea of aging. In other words, age is just a number. I think of Caleb in the Bible. He's 85 and saying, I'm just as spry as I was 40 years ago. You can look that up. It's in the book of Joshua, by the way. But the bottom line is you don't have to age like the calendar says. You can age a little bit better than the calendar says, and that's called biological aging. And to get that to do the way you want it to go, biohacking is the way. And we're working on it every day. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, give us a call. Love to help you.
Up next, gluten and other allergens.
Is it good? Is it bad? We'll find out.
And when you navigate through these economies with people, here's what happens. We want to hold their hand through it, let them know when it's time to buy, sell, reallocate, get out of Dodge. Because a lot of times when you're struck with fear does two things. Number one, it can paralyze, and people just put their head in the sand and say, I'm just going to forget about it and hopefully it gets better. Or it causes you to make a wrong decision. And this is why we are here, is to help people navigate through the political quagmire nonsense that's going on, the economic malaise, and the absolute collapse that we're seeing. And when our freedoms are eroding, our political freedoms, our economic freedoms, our personal freedoms, our religious freedoms, our health freedoms, they're all tied together. But you know what doesn't need to erode with that? Our finances.
KirkElliottPhD.com/Sherwood.
Exploring biohacking, bioharmonizing, biosynergizing, stacking, resilience, or anti-fragility.
Start here. No gimmicks, just proven results.
Hey there, Kevin Sorbo here. Now, deep down, we know this. We're more than just a brain and a body. We're a spirit, we're a soul, and we're also a physical temple. If you hit the wall when you're trying to improve one aspect of your being, it's probably because, other aspects are sabotaging our success. So that's why diets don't work. And frankly, why so much conventional wisdom from our so-called medical establishments falls flat. Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood have a very different approach. I should know because I happen to be one of their patients. They address the whole person to get to know you, your challenges, and more importantly, what your goals are. Then they offer a complete plan that addresses your unique biology and your heart. They'll help you discover what you need to experience transformation. So find out more at sherwood.tv/sorbo. That's sherwood.tv/sorbo, or see the link before. Now I'm heading for a workout. You should be going for a workout too. All right, guys. God bless.
Let's shine the spotlight on one of our star supplements.
The human body can make most of the types of fats it needs from other fats or raw materials, but not omega-3 fatty acids, also called omega-3 fats or N3 fats.
These are essential fats that the body must get from food.
Bioomega 1000 provides a potent dose of omega-3 essential fatty acids sourced from a strategically placed fishing facility in the far South Pacific Ocean off the coast of Chile.
Each capsule delivers an impressive 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA, and the capsules also contain vitamin E. See the link below for a special offer, and remember, don't be fooled by cheap online knockoffs. Is gluten an allergen?
Well, that depends how you look at it. Short answer is yes, it is, but it could be also a sensitivity too. The body responds in two different ways. And some of the testing that we do, dietary antigen testing, we look at gluten's effect on the individual system, and that can actually be either or both.
Yeah, I find it very interesting also that when we look at a genetic profile, it tells us that about 80% of the population has some sort of an intolerance to the digestion of the gluten protein. Now, intolerance, of course, is going to be different than an allergy, a frank allergy where you get the hives and the rashing and the throat closing. And then an allergy then is going to be different than a sensitivity. So people can have a wide range of reactions to this protein called gluten.
Yeah, and if you're testing genetic tests, as we know, there's two of these proteins that are tested. They're called HLA-DQ2 and HLA-DQ8. It stands for human leukocyte antigen, DQ2 and then DQ8. Now, just if you have polymorphism or mutation there, it means that, and a lot of people do, it means that you have a tendency to not be able to break down gluten very well anyway. And then you combine that with the additional gluten that is actually permeating a lot of our food supply.
Yeah, the genetically modified
everywhere.
forms of gluten.
Yeah, and then it's everywhere. I mean, so we have, we were talking to Stevie, our producer, just before the show here, about how when we were growing up, he was talking about him being 29, whatever, 29 times
29
about a few.
For the 29th time.
Few decades, right? But the idea, he was talking about why didn't we have gluten sensitivity as a discussion back when we were kids? Well, it's because it wasn't around as much. And you can sort of correlate this back with the food pyramid initiation, which came out in the mid-'80s or early '80s. And at that point in time, we had this push to take in breads and grains. So that made gluten composition of that food come in there just immediately. And at that point in history, you can see the trends. A lot of these gluten sensitivity and gluten allergy issues begin to come on the rise along with other GI issues.
Well, and then the genetic modification of the gluten molecule. Now, we call it frankenglutens, where these frankenglutens have the potential to literally disrupt the GI lining, causing a leaky gut or a leaky intestinal barrier, which then further inflames a weak system.
Now, celiac disease is a frank gluten intolerance. And there's only 2 to 4% of people that we know of have celiac disease. But I think there's probably 40 to 50% of the people in totality of America that have a sensitivity to gluten, which is crazy, So the chances are, if you're listening today, that, you do have some sort of gluten sensitivity. And the more you consume, the higher potential becomes, and the higher tendency for sensitivity you have?
One of the very first things that we do before we even go on to testing, either genetic testing, allergy or sensitivity testing, is we will remove the offending agent. The solution to pollution is dilution. You just take the offender out. And most oftentimes, in a 90-day period, individuals will get better. They'll have less gas and bloating. They'll have better digestion. They sleep better. They feel better. Their energy is better. Their brain is clearer. Their thinking is clearer. And it's all because they've been barraged by this Franken-gluten, the standard American breads and grains thing that we've been trained to take in every single day when we really don't need it.
No, we tell people all the time, just avoid processed sugars, processed breads, and processed grains. I mean, if you just do that, you will avoid the majority of the gluten. Now, we're not even talking about the gluten that's found in spices or the gluten that's found at the Chinese buffet line. We're talking about just the gluten in those things. And we see people that just do that. They see chronic headaches or migraines go away. They see GI disturbances go away. We see people with like borderline colitis or even borderline autoimmune condition down there go away. We see people with GERD or gastroesophageal reflux disease go away. Just by doing that, and that's just like not testing at all. But the interesting thing about that is when you tell somebody to give those things up, especially the bread, talking about gluten, which is a protein in wheat, when we have this genetically altered gluten that we bring it into our GI tract, it gets converted to these things called gluteomorphins. What?
It's like dope.
It's like a heroin. It's like an opioid that gets stuck and it comes in there, it binds to your receptor. That's why restaurants feed you that stuff for free. And that's why Doritos, remember them? I bet you can't eat just one.
And that's a fact.
They're right, because it's all that morphine-like substance that's found in the proteins, gluteomorphins, gluten, gliadomorphins, gliadin. And the sad thing about that is people don't realize how addicting they are. So not only do we have this high tendency for gluten sensitivity / even allergy, or both, as we talked about, now we have the addiction problem of them. And it's destroying people, every single day around this country.
So we just have to say no to the extra grains and breads, and we have to be mindful when we go to the grocery store. Yeah. It's time we turn the labels over, take the time to read the ingredients so that we're not taken by surprise when we find the additives in there that are gluten components.
Yeah, you're going to
MSG, monosodium glutamate. Those friendly things that are added for flavor or preservatives are actually aggravating the GI tract.
Yep.
So if irritable bowel is part of your conversation in your daily life, it might be time to look at what's at the end of your fork.
Yeah, and so please understand, folks, that we're just giving you truth here. So gluten is everywhere in our environment. It's ubiquitous, right? So we need to avoid it. And to avoid it, you have to fight through those addictions. So fight through the addictions, avoid that, and don't allow it to become a sensitivity and an allergy. And you will find your health and your life improving a whole lot. What does our Constitution really mean? Find out next with our constitutional attorney expert, Chris Ann Hull.
Let's get real. Most emergency food is just as bad for you as any other choice in the standard American diet. And that's just sad.
We don't just need food. We need highly nutritional food.
We don't just want to survive food shortages. We are meant to thrive in adversity.
Complete your daily nutrition and have shelf-stable Kingdom Fuel as a cornerstone of your food supply.
Don't sacrifice your health or your taste buds.
Stock up on Kingdom Fuel now.
And when you navigate through these economies with people, here's what happens. We want to hold their hand through it, let them know when it's time to buy, sell, reallocate, get out of Dodge. Because a lot of times when you're struck with fear does two things. Number one, it can paralyze, and people just put their head in the sand and say, I'm just going to forget about it and hopefully it gets better. Or it causes you to make a wrong decision. And this is why we are here is to help people navigate through the political quagmire nonsense that's going on, the economic malaise, and the absolute collapse that we're seeing. And when our freedoms are eroding, our political freedoms, our economic freedoms, our personal freedoms, our religious freedoms, our health freedoms, they're all tied together. But you know what doesn't need to erode with that? Our finances.
KirkElliottPhD.com/Sherwood.
Let's shine the spotlight on one of our star supplements.
The human body can make most of the types of fats it needs from other fats or raw materials, but not omega-3 fatty acids, also called omega-3 fats or N3 fats.
These are essential fats that the body must get from food.
Bioomega 1000 provides a potent dose of omega-3 essential fatty acids sourced from a strategically placed fishing facility in the far South Pacific Ocean off the coast of Chile.
Each capsule delivers an impressive 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA, and the capsules also contain vitamin E. See the link below for a special offer, and remember, don't be fooled by cheap online knockoffs.
We have a brand new documentary out called Non-Compliant to the Sheriff. Now, our first documentary, Non-Compliant, and our second documentary, Non-Compliant 2, are both available at noncompliantmovie.com. The first documentary is all about the duty and the role of the state to be a check and balance on the federal government, state and local government. So if you haven't seen that yet, let me please recommend that you go to noncompliantmovie.com and watch the first documentary available to you at no cost. It is going to be life-changing, and we have hundreds of thousands of 5-star reviews and people all over the world sending us messages about how this message is so life-changing. And it's a global message because, really, it's about your inherent rights. It's about why government is designed for one purpose. The purpose is to secure your rights, and how our founders put together our governments in order to retain the power by the people to be a check and balance on government through state and local government. And from that, we were inspired to create Non-Compliant to the Sheriff. Now, I have been for nearly a decade, traveling around the country teaching sheriffs and deputies a 3-hour continuing education course, all about the role and the duty of the sheriff, the history of the sheriff's role and duty to secure our rights, not to violate them. We have a whole section on the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, what our sheriffs and their deputies need to know not to be sued. And then we have a section on the jurisdiction of the sheriff, which is so incredibly important. That jurisdiction of the sheriff is really the most powerful guard and protector of the rights of the people than any other institution our founders created here in these United States of America through our constitutional republic. And it's from that course that I had sheriffs telling me, this is inspirational. What you've taught us in these 3 hours is just simply life-changing. As a matter of fact, I've taught this at big conferences where I taught the sheriffs of 17 states all at one time. And I had sheriffs coming up to me immediately before I even got off the stage saying, I've been on the phone changing policies already based on what we learned from you. And we thought to ourselves, you know what? We need the people to know this information. We need the people to know this, number one, so that they can make sure the candidates they have for sheriff know the proper role and duty of the sheriff. So we can be sure to have constitutionally minded sheriffs. Number two, because if you have a constitutional sheriff, if the body of the people are not in support of that sheriff cannot be who they want to be and who they're required to be. And number three, it empowers sheriffs who already have that inclination. In a world that is full of propaganda like defund the police and all of our law enforcement is evil. You see it all over the news. You see wicked politicians propagating this stuff. We knew we had to create non-compliant to the sheriff to show people what's really happening at the level of the sheriff that the media will not show you. There are sheriffs all over America who are standing up in defiance of unconstitutional laws and orders and edicts, in defense of the property rights of the people, and they've been doing this for years. But the politicians and the media do not want you to know this. They do not want you to know what sheriffs are doing successfully, regularly, to stand for people's rights, because this is how government's supposed to really, really work. Now, what we do with non-compliant too is we take two real-life situations, two events that actually happened. A pastor who refused to shut down his church over COVID, and a sheriff who arrested him for it. And a pastor who refused to shut down for COVID, and a sheriff who said, I'll go to jail to keep you open. And how this two incidents actually impacted and changed their states, and even all of these United States, all boiled down to what a sheriff would or would not do. This film is brand new, available at noncompliantmovie.com only right now. Pretty soon we're going to make it available on DVD, so maybe by the time you see this, it will be available on DVD at noncompliantmovie.com. But we're already getting messages about how this is life-changing. And to be honest, if you share this with your sheriff might be one who has watched this movie and come back to us and asked us to come and train their deputies. Noncompliantmovie.com. It will be life-changing.
How can boosting your daily nutrition save you money? I'm Dr. Michele Sherwood.
And I'm Dr. Mark Sherwood. Kingdom Fuel costs about 1/3 of the average lunch and will supersize your nutrition.
Our unique meal shakes are balanced, low glycemic, rich in fiber with 20 grams of clean protein, essential vitamins and minerals, healthy fats, and organic fruits and vegetables.
Kingdom Fuel is a simple start to a transformed life.